Welcome to another XLM price action update. This is also going to involve the bird's eye view, the general overview, the larger picture of what could potentially be happening here. Now, in the past, I've definitely said things like, "Oh, this moves with the stock market, etc., etc." But taking a look at the picture in in itself, one's just got to, try and be realistic with the interpretation, but also look at it as its own individual pattern. So there's got to be that balance between, all three things, right? Because also you've got to consider the possibilities of this being, you know, multiple patterns, because wave components at the corrective level, they consist of the same patterns, right? So at the highs here, we had a 5 wave move up to the top. We then have what appears to be a 5 wave move down. Now, wave one can happen a 5 wave move can happen in wave one or in wave A of a zigzag, right? A larger zigzag pattern, right? So I don't know. I find it interesting that we saw this move down that looks like a 5 wave move when Bitcoin produced its wave A, right? This is a bigger pattern. Obviously, it's got a different role to play in terms of the correction now, right? So I see an ABC in Bitcoin. I potentially see, like it could be a zigzag happening here as well. Like let's just say this is a zigzag. The expectation for the zigzag would be to go down to 0.004444, as you can see right here. All right. And, that is being not so bearish. Okay. That's the not so bearish interpretation of this move. If you were to assume that it's a wave three, it could go much lower and it wouldn't end for a while. So although that could be the case, it may not be the case also. Okay. So obviously, as I go through the analysis, you might make your own assumptions on this. And, if we're expecting Bitcoin to go, pretty low, um, you've just got to take a few things into consideration, which I'll also do as well, considering that the Bitcoin call is pretty bearish. So let's just zoom into the 4-hour chart. All right. So let's just hit it from the top here. I believe the top of this move was A in 2021. And then we had what looks like a B wave with a CDE pattern. Okay, the CDE pattern there, you can see it, the C, the D, and the E, which caused this to be resistance. We had a 1 2 1 2, I believe it's a 1 2 1 2 pattern. And now this has looked like it's just going to go lower and lower and lower and lower, right? And this is the beginning of the 5 wave move. This has got a long way to fall, right? So I really don't see this coming back up anytime soon. The reason why I waited this long to post videos is that we needed to see more price action, and we just went sideways for a long time. Now that we're starting to see a bit of a breakdown, a bit of confirmation that this is going much lower. I think it's just very interesting to see this unfold whilst not having posted anything, because we haven't really moved much at all. Um, and that's basically how I break down that correction. So the correction itself went from obviously March 2020, and I believe it ended in June this year, right? And that's where a lot of people believe that the correction ended for cryptos in around June. But I believe that the correction in wave two or wave B ended, and then we're going to see further downside. So I don't know what people are seeing in June, but June didn't mean anything really. Like this is going to continue, in my opinion, obviously, according to RS Wave. Check out the website if you haven't. I'm going to be teaching this stuff live in Jan. Um, and just a whole bunch of stuff condensed there. But yeah, look, it's just, to me, there's nothing bullish about this. But if you want to look at it from a different perspective, without all the doom and gloom, well, obviously it's already a bit doom and gloomy, but like, just say, for example, this is a zigzag, right? And we do go this low, great buying opportunity, right? And then the bounce will be B wave. So more than likely, what you'll see is a zigzag in the opposite direction, right? Like so. I mean, it does nothing to say that it's going to be that big. I mean, it could be. I don't think there's anything to stop it from being that big, to be honest. But, like a couple of buying opportunities here, especially at the lows. I mean, if you buy it for that price and then it bounces a couple of times in a couple of waves there, I really don't think there's anything wrong with that. Um, and then obviously after that, we're going to assess the situation and see, you know, how big is the B wave by the time it ends, because there will be a C wave after that, right? So that's pretty curious in itself. It makes me wonder, if that's the case, then you know, how will it look in terms of you know Bitcoin? Because don't forget that this started correcting. What is it, before Bitcoin, right? Um, and like, Bitcoin started to fall later. Started to fall. I think it was around November last year, and this started correcting in May last year. So there's a bit of a difference there. So does that mean that Bitcoin may bottom after this does? It's quite possible, right? Um, it's. I mean, how can I say this? Bitcoin goes to higher highs, takes, it performs a lot better, but does that mean that it's going to fall a bit longer than this does, or will it all turn at the same time, or what's the deal there? Because of course we know that in March 2020, everything went up. So potentially, there could be quite a severe move down to hit that low, to signal that turnaround, like that bottom. Um, but who knows to what extent Bitcoin will spike down in that fall before it has it could even have a pretty serious bounce as well. Like that's never happened before, right? So all these things to take into consideration, um, whilst also understanding that the C wave in Bitcoin does not signal the end of a correction at all. Um, like, you got to understand also that if this is just a wave, like the first zigzag, wave A for XLM, then there's another zigzag coming, but for Bitcoin that'd be a D wave, right? So a D wave up and then another E wave down, would be it could potentially be a C wave in XLM, right? And then from then on out, I mean, a CDE pattern could easily form here, and then this thing could keep going whilst Bitcoin's, the D wave and the E wave finish this off completely. I mean, it could come to that, I suppose. Um, and yeah, for whatever reason, that could play out like that. Like, at the end of the day, there could be a currency reset or something. There could be any number of factors that play out here, along with interest rates going higher and higher and higher. The pattern in interest rates, I don't believe it's correlated with crypto. as much as the stock market. But at the same time, like, just because interest rates go up, it doesn't really mean we're going to see a huge crash. Although, to me, if anything, it might be a huge black swan event to really cause some problems. And I think that could be in itself something to look out for. Maybe it could happen in stages. Just because the stock market goes, if it goes lower, sharply lower, does that mean that cryptos have to continue to fall down as low as the stock market goes? Like, they could decouple, right? They could just not, be one could not be, it doesn't have to be as bearish as the other, right? And I don't know, that's just my opinion. um, in terms of XLM, has anything really changed with what it is as a crypto, as in terms of its white paper and business case and all that sort of thing? I don't think it's changed much at all. I think that this correction just needed to be had because that's just the way markets work. Markets have to correct at some point, and depending on what magnitude of correction is needed. um, Obviously, Bitcoin probably needs a fairly decent whack of a correction, right? And in my opinion, it hasn't really corrected to the levels that it should. But then again, some exponential moves don't really need to go back to their previous fourth wave. It could be just a really, decent percentage correction, which we've already seen. And if this is just a continuation for Bitcoin in a correction that started in 2017, um, well, it kind of makes sense that it's just probably going to go sideways a little bit. Doesn't mean that it's going to completely collapse as much as other moves up correct. Sometimes they correct up to 99%. Don't think it's going to go that low for some reason. So in terms of XLM here, we could. Well, I mean, that's a pretty decent drop anyway. I mean, if you take it from the highs down to that level there, that's 99%. You know what I mean? So going down that low is 99%, right? So if you just quickly look at the Bitcoin chart, right, falling down from the highs up until now is already 76%. What's 99% in Bitcoin? It's probably to the previous fourth wave. I'm not saying that's going to happen, by the way. Um, yeah, the previous wave 4 is 99%. It doesn't need to go below that, and no one's saying that it's going to do that because, like I said before, like sideways correction can be more shallow a correction. And even if you go back to the previous low, that's 95%. That's insane. Like, Michael Saylor will be, hopeful, obviously. But yeah, look, I don't think it's a big deal. I think that it'll all bounce eventually. And whatever happens to currencies and interest rates, I don't think it's really relevant, to be honest. I think that's the old system. We're trying to move to the new one. Perhaps we will. Who knows? So, yep, coming back to XLM, thought I'd make it a bit interesting with a few different ways to look at this, a few different mentions of Bitcoin along with the usual. But yeah, look, another thing also is C waves. Whether they be the C wave or the zigzag, they can also be sharp. But does it have to be sharp? Can it take its time? Can it be as long as the previous move? Will it slowly step down into 2024? It could, or it could go down for a year, right? What's a year? That'd be like roughly where I had that line. The previous move took, like roughly 2 years. So it could take 2 years. So hopefully you found this video interesting and informative. Thank you for watching.